Welcome to Creating Effective Youth Adult Partnerships in CPI. Today I have my team with me, and we will be facilitating this webinar tonight. Um, and it's this webinar is sponsored by Ignite Minnesota, and it is hosted tonight by Sprockets. Yeah. All right, so this is the overview of the session tonight. We have the definitions and intros, then we go into why this matters, and then we go into key principles, and lastly, we will end with Q&A. And when we go with Q&A, just continue keeping notes of any questions you have and bring it to the end. So, yeah. Or you could write it in the chat as well. All right, so our first one is definitions and intros. And I will hand this off to New.
Thanks, Lori, and welcome everyone. My name is New, and I'm one of the co-facilitators for tonight. So we thought that we would begin with some definitions, just so that we're all on the same page in our understanding when we mention some of these phrases or acronyms. So we'll be talking a lot about CPI, which stands for Continuous Program Improvement. And really, that's just an ongoing process of assessment or evaluation that results in program improvement that many of us are involved in our program. And usually this involves a process of assess, plan, and improve. Tonight, we'll also be sharing some of the data results from the M3 evaluation project that the team here, the facilitation team, we are consultants for Ignite Minnesota on. And our job is to help Ignite understand the experience of young people at the M3 Huddle Days, why it's important to engage young people at the M3 Huddle Days, and what is needed to support youth engagement. And so we conducted interviews with youth who attended M3. We've also conducted interviews with program staff who brought young people with them, and then facilitators. So total in all, it was 15 people, 5 facilitators, 5 young people, and 5 program staff. It is a small sample size, but we got some really rich data from our interviews, and we'll be sharing some of that tonight as we talk through how to build youth and adult partnership and teams for CPI.
New, can I just jump in here for a second? This is Sally. I'm not sure exactly who the audience is, so can you say what M3 is?
Oh, thank you. I've been going to M3 since it began, so I just call it M3. But it stands for Making Meaning Out of Multiple Sets of Data. And it's a one full day, like 6-hour day long event where program teams bring their staff, key constituents. And so like for us, we usually bring young people, but some people bring parents, school partners with them, and they look at key data and they make meaning of it. What is all the data telling us, and how can it help us improve our programming? So thanks, Sally, for that reminder. I'm gonna hand it over back to Lori.
Thank you, New. And these are just a couple more that might show up during this webinar. Is Why Lie, aka Youth Leadership Initiative. It is a community-based multicultural leadership development program in St. Paul that holds about 40 to 50 high school youth each year to help deepen their awareness of their strengths and cultural identity, as well as developing leadership skills. And they also get to explore how to work across cultures and take action in the community. This program also has 10 youth mentors who are past participants who were peer nominated to lead. And they get to co-design curriculums as well as facilitate parts of the programs. And I'm a youth mentor, as well as Annie, who will be showing up pretty soon. Another one is YPE, which is Youth Participatory Evaluation. It is a method of involving youth participants in evaluating the programs that they are a part of. This is a thing that has been going on within YLI, engaging young people and doing program evaluation and doing recommendations for program improvement through YPE for 8 years. Yeah. All right, so we're going to do introductions with the team. I will go off and start first. And we will introduce our name, pronouns, school, and how long we've been doing evaluation and a CPI, continuous program improvement for. My name is Lori. My pronouns are she, her. I graduated from Harding High School, and right now I'm attending Concordia University in St. Paul. I've been involved in evaluation and CPI for about 3.5 years. And I'll pass it to Annie.
Hi, my name is Annie. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm currently attending St. Olaf as a first year. And I've been involved with YLI for about 4 years, all throughout high school, 3 years as kind of like 2 years as a participant, 1 year as a mentor, and through the YPE process, I've been involved for about 3 years. And I'll pass it on to Vishal next.
Hi, I'm Vishal. I go by he, him pronouns. I go to Math and Science Academy in Woodbury, and I was in YLI as a participant for 2 years, and I was in YPE for 1 year. And I'll pass it on to Nu.
Thanks, Vishal. So my name again is Nguyen, and I was the director of the Youth Leadership Initiative for the last 14 years. I've been doing youth work for about 20 years, maybe 20 plus years. And all of that time I've been engaged in program evaluation. It's just, as you all know, it's just part of our work. And then I've been doing YPE for the last 8 years with the Youth Leadership Initiative. And I would say my school is a school of life. I'm constantly learning all the time. I forgot to say my pronouns, she, her. And Sally, pass it on to you.
Thanks, Nu. I'm Sally Brown, and I use she, her pronouns, and I have been involved in YLI since it began, and when we were in the program design, so that was like in 2005, so about 15 years, and did youth work for longer than that. I'm not sure how many years anymore, 30 some, and have been involved in evaluation, formal evaluations of programs and informal evaluations of programs over all of those years of time, and been involved with YPE throughout its existence within YLI, but maybe only about 6 or 7 years. I'm not sure I was involved the first year we did it. And I'll send it, oh no, we're gonna go into a poll and I'm gonna run the poll. So Nu, can you, yeah, thanks. So we just wanna see kind of who's in the audience. We can see some of them. Hello to you all. I now can see some faces. And if you could, and are willing to, if you could put on your video for this section, because we're gonna do a thing raising hands so we can see how many people this applies to and kind of who's here with us. Thanks. Okay, so we're going to do this quick poll just to see, and it's going to touch on some of the things that we're thinking about tonight. So first of all, raise your hand if you appreciate it when someone asks you for your opinion. All right, looks like most of us like that. Raise your hand if you want to be heard and valued. All right, thank you. Raise your hand if you have been in a place where you didn't feel comfortable speaking up or asking questions. Raise your hand if you have tried something new because someone recommended or asked you to. Raise your hand if you have engaged young people in evaluation for program improvement. Not as many hands on that one. So hopefully tonight will help you with that. Raise your hand if you have taken youth to the M3 Huddle Day that New described, that all-day event looking at data with youth. Again, not too many. Thank you. And finally, raise your hand if you would like to engage youth in evaluation for program improvement. So maybe you're not doing it now, but you're curious, you'd like to try it or do more of it. All right. Okay, thank you, everyone. That gets us on the road to getting started thinking about this, and we'll share some of our experiences with it as we go through the program now. I'll turn it back to Annie. Take it away.
So just some of our main objectives for this webinar. Our first one is to learn the value of youth engagement in CPI. The second one is to provide an overview of CPI and how youth can be involved, to share what we learned about including youth in CPI, and also inspire seminar attendees to build youth-adult partnerships in CPI. And so I'll pass it on to New next. Oh, sorry, I'll pass it on to Vishal next.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay, I'm unmuted. Hi, I'm Vishal, and we're going to be going over why it's important to involve youth into CPI. And I'll be going first over shifting youth from recipients to partners. And for me, I went from being a recipient as a participant in YLI for 2 years to helping structure YLI and making recommendations for it. And it was really important that I joined, for me at least, because I got to learn a lot about what it takes to build a program and how much it takes to really improve it, and how much effort you have to put in to like want to know more and all of that. So yeah, I'll pass it on to Sally.
So another reason to involve youth is because youth bring in a new perspective as we're doing evaluation and doing program improvement. So I have been involved with evaluation of programs for many, many years, but usually it was adult driven or maybe even outside evaluators, and they would come and you'd give surveys or you'd do some kind of an assessment, and then you'd have your data. And when I started getting involved in YPE, I realized how much more fun evaluation was when we included young people in it. That what was kind of a chore necessary to get information to continue to improve the program, which I really believe in, it always felt a little bit like a chore until we involved youth. And part of the part of involving youth is that their perspective about it is different. So when you do the evaluation, they're bringing their own lived experience into the program when they think about what does this data mean? How do I make meaning out of this data? Or what kinds of recommendations do these data suggest for improvement? And their perspective is different from the adult or the program staff perspective. And so they have, by including them and talking with them, we can really come to what I feel are better approaches to program improvement. Lori.
Thank you, Sally. So my part is about deepening youth engagement and program. I feel like I definitely for sure relate to this one because being a youth mentor in YLI, I wasn't part of the YPE, but I was part of still program improvement. And what was really awesome was that I got to see, the behind the scenes, and it's much cooler and more fun than you think it is. And although it's a lot of data, you also get a whole team to look at that data and to look and to look at the evaluation, and you also get to see like why is this happening. It's because of the decisions that you're making that it's happening. And that makes you want to be more involved because you're the one helping making that that thing happening right now. Like for example, it could be like wanting to have more snacks during during dinner, or having more fun activities before doing our sessions. And then it happens because, you know, we listen to youth, and that makes them want to come more because, you know, there's more energizers or more snacks. um so it's like you have to pay attention as well. And I'm going to pass it to New.
Thanks, Lori. You know, as Lori was talking about that, the deepening of youth engagement and program, I mean, I've definitely seen it. So over the 8 years that I've been involving young people in evaluation and program improvement, whether it's through the youth mentors or YPE, um, it has definitely deepened their engagement in the program, not less, more. So it helps to not only further the quality of your program, but deepen youth's commitment to the program. So I want to share why young people should be involved in continuous program improvement. And from the staff director or coordinator role, it's an opportunity for us who care about social justice, who care about youth voice and youth engagement, to really align our values and our actions together. So when I introduced myself, I've been working at Wildlife with the Youth Leadership Initiative for 14 years, and the first 7 years that I was there, we had the youth mentor component, but we did not engage young people in evaluation. It's always been, you know, experts, the researchers who did the program evaluation, or the staff who did it. And I ask myself now, like 8 years later, since I started engaging young people in CPI, I ask myself now, why didn't I start earlier? And because in some ways I was aligning my values to my actions, but in other ways I wasn't. And, you know, like Sally said, it brings a new perspective to evaluation, but I think the most powerful thing is to give power to young people. And that is something that I really value and I work hard at. It's just a reminder for me that, like, as a program staff coordinator, leader, I can always learn and grow and do better. And I tell you, it's a lot of work because we have our own program goals. And so that means I have to set aside extra time to engage young people in evaluation away from our program or in addition to our regular program. And it takes time, but I'm never going back. I tell you all, I'm never going back to such a time when I did not involve young people in continuous program improvement. It has made our program better. Again, it has deepened young people's commitment. They learn new skills. We're just all better for it. So it really is an opportunity for me as a professional to align the very values that I talk about to the actions. Annie.
Yes. So involving youth is really important because they're definitely capable and interested. Like for me, New and Sally reached out to me personally to like ask me to join the YPE team, and I feel like it was really important for me to know that the opportunity was out there and that I could do it. And like during the course of the program, just being supported by my other youth in the program as well as like the adult facilitators, it helped me kind of like go through the process a bit like easier. And just overall, like just knowing that the opportunity is out there and that I could do it and that I'm just not, and that like I have a voice to do so is just really important for me. And to touch on the next one of a new skill that I learned, I was able to kind of develop my critical thinking skills as well as analyzing quality all around the world around me. Like I brought all of that I learned from my evaluation training out to the real world, and I started seeing it like in school, and if my teachers were doing things to our quality, like making sure everyone's participating and like greeting everyone every morning and stuff like that. So it was just very valuable experience for me. And I'll pass it on to Vishal next.
Thank you, Annie. I would say that a skill that I learned was creating an unbiased observation, because during YPE, we had to evaluate YLI, and having an unbiased observation was really, really hard at first because it was me observing a program that I really cared about, and it was hard to not be like, this is the best program ever. There's nothing wrong with it. So it took a little while, but over time, it I learned how to like create an unbiased opinion about things, like not assuming how people may feel, even though that's how I might feel in a situation. So that was a really big thing for me. And I'll pass that on to Lori.
Thanks, Vishal. Yeah, new skills development. That's such a huge thing, especially with CPI. I think for sure with my experience and what I've learned, one is looking outside of the box and analyzing things before taking a huge step or little steps, depending on the situation. An example is before designing our new program year for YLI for the 2019-2020 programming. We thought about, you know, what would happen if we did programming at this time, like would 3 p.m. be too early, would 4:30 be too late, again, like, you know, is Monday too soon, is Friday too late, what about Wednesday, or what about the youth mentor meeting. So basically, this the idea is, you know, thinking before you do it, and I never thought that um, that was a huge thing in CPI, and also analyzing data, program evaluation as well. Um, so that was a huge thought about for me and development for me. And another one is like having evaluation for yourself is a lot for like self improvement. We did that a lot in YLI as well. And I will pass it to, oh, myself. Oh, well, that caught me by surprise. So these are suggestions from the M3 evaluation project on why you should involve youth. It is very empowering. Youth appreciated that there were resources and a platform to speak. I did see in the chat that someone mentioned it is empowering to involve youth. Uh, and youth began to have more interest and want to learn more about evaluation. And an opportunity to contribute. Youth got to come up with ideas that could make their program a lot better. And I will pass it to Sally.
All right. So in addition to why it matters, and we'll probably be coming back to that throughout the presentation here, we also wanted to share some things that we all have learned as we have done this about things that are important to consider, what we're calling principles for engaging youth that we have learned and discovered as we have been doing more and more of that involvement of youth and sharing the power with youth to evaluate the programs that they're involved in. And so we've got a couple of different slides on this. We're going to start with 3 of them here, and then we'll have another one. So, and we're each going to speak to a different one of these principles that we have learned. So one of the things that we have learned and have done over the years is to use multiple modes of teaching, different ways of getting the information across about evaluation. For many of the youth that have been involved, some of this is new content for them. And so figuring out how to engage them in that content in a way that they can really learn it, enjoy it, and be engaged in it. So we do a lot of different kinds of things, from small group discussions and reflections to really active engagement. We've done things like doing role playing. We've played Kahoots to say, what have we learned? You know, what do we remember from the things we've learned? We use Post-it notes and let young people write down questions or thoughts they have and share those with each other. We have used pictures a lot, shown videos or movie clips that highlight some aspects of evaluation, and try to really think about the flow of every session that we do to have different ways of engaging the young people in the activities that we do. And Newt, you can take the next principle.
Great, thanks, Sally. So this is an important one. Well, they're all very important. So the second important principle is that we make it meaningful. So the whole continuous program improvement process, we make it accessible and relevant to young people. And so what does that mean? That means we work a lot on ensuring that we not just teach concepts, but we're creating opportunities for young people to kind of co-own what the concepts mean. So for example, with YPE, we might share the definition from Kim Sabaflores, and then we'll invite, you know, the YPE team specifically as an example to say, but what does it mean for you? Let's use our own language. This is how she thinks about it. And so then, you know, that sets us up for the 22 weeks of programming that we have together around evaluation and continuous program improvement. So young people really feel like, oh, I am a part of this process. I'm not just the learner here. I'm not just the recipient, but I get to co-own and learn at the same time. We do a lot on making it relevant to young people, meaning that as we're learning an evaluation concept or tool, we invite young people to apply it to their life outside. And so we might say, we learned about, we did a training on the YPQA. In between break, we want you all to either pay attention to your classroom or mentally evaluate a family event. And then come back and we'll have a conversation about it. And so then they start to see that like elements of quality programming doesn't just exist within our program, the walls of our program, but actually those concepts, you can actually start to evaluate the world, right? Your laundromat, the store that you go to, how friendly are people chatting? Is there community building happening? And so I think people really, at least our young people have really appreciated that, to say, oh, evaluation is not so scary, or continuous program quality is not so scary. I understand it, I get it. I evaluate every day. And so we try to bring it to the everyday level. And that demystifies kind of the fears that people might have when they think about evaluation. I also want to say that we always start with leveraging the wisdom in the experience of the young people first. Before we start teaching the concepts, we talk about pay attention to your own experience being in the program. What feelings did you get? What observations did you observe? In terms of quality. And so they start off personalizing what it means, and then we add on the concepts. And so in that way, it's very accessible to young people, because they're like, oh, when we talk about quality, I know what it feels like. I've been there. I know how I was treated. I know the conversations that like my peers were having around the experience. That's quality. That's what you all mean by quality experience. I get it, right? And so that's been, you know, one of the tools that has enabled young people to really understand and jump on board with learning about evaluation and CPI. Vishal.
Thank you, No. So another really key thing is meeting various learning styles. Sally was talking before about doing Kahoots and putting Post-its up on walls, and that's a very good way of to have people learn, because that's a very engaging and hands-on kind of activity. Me personally, I'm a very visual learner, so I really like having like slides up and like taking notes and stuff, because that really helps me learn. And in YPE, we did a lot of those where we would have a picture and we would have to just observe and write down everything that we see in that picture. And then after that, we would have a full discussion about what we see, why do you think this is this way, and then we would go from there. So yeah, I'll pass it on to Annie.
Yes. So it's really important to have sessions be interactive, engaging, and fun, because I don't think anyone really likes to be lectured at for like 2 hours. So just incorporating different elements such as like icebreakers and energizers and games. Because I remember in YPE sessions, we would always start off with an icebreaker or like check-in question every single session. And then we would have, we would like learn through like different ways. And then through the middle of the session, we would have a different Energizer every day. And then at the end, we would have a different checkout question as well. So yeah. And also like while we were learning, it wasn't just like lecturing all the time. Like it would be really interactive and engaging. Like Sally and Vishal brought up, like there would be cahoots and post-it notes, and we would make posters, or we would watch like different videos. So there's just a lot of different elements that come in to just make the session a lot more engaging like that. And I'll pass it on to Lori next.
Thanks, Annie. Um, so this one, including young people in conversations, is it's self-explanatory, but there's a lot of ways to engage young people in these conversations, and I think from my own experience, it was very powerful, and it felt like I was included. It felt like, I had a say and I could help make a decision, and that was the entire thing. That was the whole thing was that you know New and Sally would bring like these ideas, but they wouldn't like finalize it until like we gave a yes or no. And that's awesome, because it's like they wait until we approve, because they are giving the power to us and including our opinions and our ideas, and not making a final decision until you know a yes or no from us. Which from the style, like, this is kind of weird that they're asking us to say yes or no. Like, they were asking us to vote, and I was like, are we supposed to do that? I mean, we're all volunteers, we're not getting paid for this. But yet we're making these really huge decisions that are changing a program, and that's really awesome. And um I'm pretty sure a lot of young people would feel the same if you just involve them in the decision making. And I'm just going to hop right into equal partners versus tokenism. Um, with my experience, every time there's an opportunity, YLI adults always reach out to young people first. And I always wonder, like, they have these huge connections with adults who might have like a lot more experience than we do. Like, I was like 17, and I'm like, why are you reaching out to me? I don't know what to do with this. And it's like, they reach out to us, the young people. And a really great thing is that they also create a space and make sure that we understand before pushing us into something that we're not so sure about, and before moving forward and going straight into work. Like, they're like, okay, let's slow down, we're going to create this space for you to ask any questions. And that's sort of why, like, I'm still so committed to YLI today. And it's like, it doesn't just stop there, and it's not just like, oh, we're going to hand off all the like jobs to New to handle. It's more like it's split up to everyone, and everyone has a role in something. So yeah, I will pass it to Annie.
Yes, thank you, Lori. Um, I had experience of being an equal partner with being a youth facilitator for YPE. So I was like specifically reached out again from Sally and Nu to facilitate that YPE year with them. And like through my experience, I was involved in like all of the planning process, and as well as like choosing my role for each session, what I wanted to do. And I could like speak up about my ideas throughout each session. And like I'm a pretty quiet and like reflective person, so if I went like long periods without like offering anything, like someone would be like, oh, Annie, what do you have to say? So I really felt valued in that space, because I knew I wasn't there just to be like, oh, there's a youth facilitator on this team, but like they truly valued my presence and my ideas. And also, like as an equal partner, New and Sally would always like come up to meet with me. So they would come close to where I was to do the planning sessions and came at a time where that was convenient for me. So I felt like that was also like very valuable. And I'll pass it on to Vishal next.
So an experience I had being equal partners with adults would be also my joining my PE for my first year, because when I first joined, I didn't know anything about evaluating. So when I first joined, I wasn't treated differently than anybody else because it was the first year that they were letting participants join, and I was scared because it was me and one other person that were participants, so I would figure that like things would be very different because I on I viewed them as like higher up on a scale than me, but when I actually went in and I joined them, everybody was on the same level and everybody's opinions were valued the same as everybody else's, and that was a really good thing. And I'll pass it on to.
Leave it here for a second here. Let me just sort of do a little summary before we move on to the next one. So I just want to go back to thinking about these principles and what we just heard all of these folks saying. And one is make it engaging. I remembered one of the things we did that related to how we did that was we had the cookie test. So we got to use evaluation, but we were eating cookies when we were evaluating the quality of the cookies. So really being creative, but figuring out fun and engaging ways to bring the material into the room. The second really big one here that covers all of these is valuing the youth and their thoughts, their experiences, their ideas, their recommendations, and really valuing their voice and believing in them, because if we as adults believe in them, they believe in themselves and will continue to grow and grow through the experience, even when it's challenging or they're not sure if they know enough or they're good enough. Believing in them allows them to really be there and be fully present. And then finally, it's really about we as the adults sharing power with youth. And again, that's part of believing, but doing it together, being a team and sharing that power and not trying to run and control it all as adults in the space. So I really encourage you to think about those principles and some of the ideas that, that come through the project. And I'm gonna give it off to, I think this goes, is the next one you with the ideas?
No, it's Annie.
Oh, okay. All right, we were also gonna somewhere in here. Maybe before we, oh, okay, no, this one's fine. And then we can ask for some examples. Sorry, I was on the wrong one.
It's okay. So this is what we found from our M3 evaluation process and how to be effective partners with youth. So it's really important to treat youth as a part of the team, like taking time to prepare them, support them, and making sure that you value their thoughts and just making sure they feel like comfortable there. It's also important to include more youth or they feel like they're in a sea of adults. Like just including more youth in the process just makes them feel a lot more comfortable. Like for me in YPE, there was 4 youth participating and 2 adult facilitators. And in that space, I felt really just comfortable to share what I was saying because I didn't feel like I was alone or anything. And then also designing sessions to be more youth friendly, like things like fun, like having fun, food, different energizers, and not just like lecturing the whole time, but being more active and having different activities like that. And also just diving into the data. And it's also really important that program staff need more support, resources, and exchange of ideas with other facilitators to prioritize this, like just having different ideas in training staff how to do this sort of stuff is really important as well. And if my other facilitators want to add anything else, then feel free.
I think you got it, Annie. Thanks. So we're getting near the presentation, and then we wanted to have some Q&A and last words of wisdom from the youth. But as we think about not only why this is important, key principles for you to be thinking about as you create these youth and adult partnerships in CPI, but what could it look like? And so this is a compilation of some of our own experiences, and it is also some of the experiences of the people that we interviewed for the M3 evaluation project. So in a sense, it's about starting somewhere and going everywhere, right? I think part of the earlier first stages, if you were like, I want to do this, how can I do this? One is like invite young people to show up. That's step one. We heard it from the youth facilitators tonight, which was an adult presented the opportunity to me. And so the invitation is huge, providing the opportunity, step one. You might also share stories of how other young people are engaged, just to get young people excited. Ask them, how do they want to be involved in the continuous program improvement process that you all have? Make the CPI a part of your youth leadership components. Many young people, many of the programs that we interviewed had leadership programs. And so they were leveraging the trainings that these young people already have and including CPI as part of their leadership duty. And in YLI, that was also how we started out. We had these youth mentors and we said, youth mentors, you're already really immersed in the leadership thinking of the program. Who would like to be a part of diving deeper in thinking about evaluation? And so you don't have to create a 22-week program like we did, right? You could get 1 or 2 youth trained as a YPQA assessor. One of our programs actually pay a young person to be the YPQA assessor at their site. And they did this consistently throughout the year, which was really cool. You could take them to the M3 Huddle Day that Ignite holds throughout the region. And that's one whole day of analyzing data with you and giving their perspective about what could improve. You could do a couple of sessions on just what is evaluation in all the different ways that you can think about data and how data is used. You can share data with young people. Maybe it's not the M3 Huddle Day, but you set aside one program, session and you share data with them. One of the programs that we interviewed actually did that and then would have young people paired up and go for a walk and talk about what they saw in the data, make meaning of it, share their opinions. Also, programs are involving young people in the development and the conducting of surveys at their program sites. And so as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. So I'm gonna pause and
Can I just
Sally?
throw in here, if you have things that you have done or examples, you can just throw some ideas in the chat of things you have done in your own programming. That'll give other people ideas.
Yeah, like Desra mentioned using Pokemon characters for evaluation, right? Like if you've done some innovative things, definitely please share it so that we can all learn from it. Again, I know that for our own journey in the Youth Leadership Initiative, it's been a process. We learn every year of how to tweak it, how to make it better, what worked, what didn't work. And so if you're just starting out, I invite you to just be willing to be on a journey, on a learning journey. Try it out. I think sometimes we want to wait until it's perfect, or we want to wait until we know everything. And I would say, I think I waited too long. Again, it's like, why did I wait so long? Why didn't I do this earlier? And I was actually really afraid when I first started. I was like, I don't know. I've never done this before. Again, I don't have time. Like many of us, we were very busy. And I had an intern that came in one year and she's like, I like YPE. Can I try it out? I'm like, okay, you try it out first. And so she tried it out. And then she's like, this is what I learned. You could do this. And that gave me the confidence to say, oh, I just really let youth lead and I provide guidance. Okay, let's do it. So anyways, I just encourage you all to start somewhere. There's lots of different ways to do this. So I'm giving it over to Lori.
All right. if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and any of us can answer them. And while we wait for people to drop questions in the chat, we could give out last words of inspiration if any of the youth presenters can start.
Oh, Lori, there's a question.
Awesome. Okay. So this question is, how should programs budget for this? Are there budget implications to do this? Well, that programs should consider.
Okay, so since I was the program director, I can chime in on that one. You know, when we started, and it might be true now, although I'm not quite sure, I think that as a 21st century learning center, you might have money to do the work, actually. I want to say that, yeah, so Brian, you know, it's been starting to be built into the 21st century grant, so that if you are a recipient of that grant, you should have some funds to do evaluation. So I encourage you, use it. Set aside some time, use that. You might even be able to pay stipends to your youth evaluators, which would be really cool. When I was doing it, there was no extra money. And so, and there was no extra time. All my staff were really busy too. And so, because I really was interested in it, I just did it. So as the director, I was managing all the behind the scenes. I was also doing direct service, right? By running a YPE, but because I cared so much about it. And when I saw it, I really thought it had potential. And so I just invested time in it, but you'll have to figure out who would you give time to in terms of your staff to learn about it and to do the work. I know that there's a lot more questions coming up.
Yeah.
I heard a question about what is an energizer? Lori, do you want to answer that one?
Yes. In other words, it could be like an icebreaker and a short activity. An energizer is just like a quick 5 to 10, 15 minutes, however long you want it to be. And it's just like something to boost up energy, to get people like, ready for, the event, or it could be like a retreat, for a session, for a webinar. Yeah, does that kind of answer your question, Kate? Does any of my other facilitators want to add in anything to that?
I would just say it's exactly what Lori said. Maybe just as a thought is, again, like somebody asked a question too, how do you do this during COVID? COVID hit when we were in the middle of YPE and all of our programming last spring. And so we had to transition everything onto Zoom, and we had to do more energizers. As you can see, I had to use better, more inspiring, visually appealing PowerPoints, no more boring PowerPoints, because the visual is just as much as like making sure you're engaging people, right, through kind of active learning. And it's harder, but we did it. And actually YPE was so engaging and fun that like all of our YPE people continued to come and stayed until the end. And actually one of our parents started coming to our YPE sessions and stayed with us all the way into the end. So we were able to finish out. But I think a lot of that has to do with the way that we designed the programming to be fun and engaging, using all the principles we talked about before.
Yes. Thank you, New, for answering that. There's another question about how much did the program participants know that their peers were involved in providing evaluation feedback for their program?
Mm.
I think I can answer that one. So, I mean, during my first year, I didn't know that other people were in it, because like whenever they would do evaluations, they would always be off to the side. So I'd be like, okay, what are they doing just standing there taking notes? Because I didn't know at the time. But now that I'm in it, I actually know what they were doing. But most of the time, participants of the program won't know unless they like ask you what you're doing. So yeah.
Thank you, Vishal. Anyone else want to answer that question? There's another question. Is there a way that the decision around which youth to pay a stipend to for observations is made?
You know, maybe this, I also invite Jocelyn from Sprockets. Jocelyn might also, and Carrie's here from Ignite as well, that if you know of, you know, folks who are paying young people to do YPQ observations, please share it out. I know for us, we've been primarily doing it internally. So we teach our young people, I think in one of our values is the youth participatory evaluation. So engaging those who are knowledgeable about the program to evaluate the program. We really believe that there's power in that lived experience, and that it's hard to, yes, you can be more neutral when you go in and evaluate another program, but there's power in understanding what should be happening that isn't happening. And then you combine that with the skills, that's a very powerful combination. So we have not been doing evaluation of other programs.
And we have not paid stipends to the YPE team. That's just part of their programming. So within YLI, they're not being paid the stipends. Some of the other programs, when we did the evaluation project here about for Ignite, there were some programs that were doing that. I don't know how they selected or decided who was doing that. So maybe someone else does. But in YLI, we don't pay the stipends for that.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll just share that I think for YLI, I like to think of us as a double-headed dragon program. We run leadership programs for young people. We have these different like levels of leadership built into that, including youth evaluation and evaluators and youth mentors who are leading the program. But we also do consulting, trying to share our best practices with community, because we've been getting so many requests to share some of the things that we're learning. And so through our consulting arm, we'll bring young people with us to provide technical assistance and consulting to other people. So we don't go in and do the YPQA observation for them, but we might go in because somebody has identified that they wanted to elevate their youth leadership model. Or maybe they want to build youth evaluation in their model. And so we might go in, and the money that we gain from that, we pay our youth stipends as youth consultants to go and teach other people. And then that money comes to support our programming, our core programming. So that's how we've done it. So it's a little bit different than what you all were asking, but that's how we've been able to
add in one more thing. I do know a couple of examples, and I see that Jan also mentioned 4-H has trained young people. I know that Flipside, the 21st Century program in St. Paul at Humboldt High School, that they, as part of their after-school program, would hire some young people actually to help to do some of the offerings that they had. And they also had a young person that got trained and got paid as her job to go around and do observations of all the different offerings that they had. And then, Carrie, to your question, Sprockets this past year did have our 3 young people that we were, as part of our youth employment program during the school year, trained as assessors, and we were going to have them pair up with adults to go out. And then COVID hit, so that didn't happen. And to Jan's point, scheduling is hard. So depending on when, St. Paul had changed their start and end times, and so older youth were getting out later. And so there are some barriers to it, but I think we've been thinking a lot about how do we continue to increase accessibility around young people having those opportunities, whether it is part of a leadership program internally, which we've had some programs do, or if there's opportunities to earn some funds around it.
Jocelyn, I just want to add to that piece. And our young people, our 4-Hers were trained just to do internal. It was our community club programs. And we found that there was such richness having them be a part of this, both in terms of, we were just so impressed with how they grasped scoring. their evidence documentation, but then equally as valuable, and I think what we're all getting at here is their input when we did the follow-up meetings and the discovery meetings. We had funds to do this. We had weekend training sessions, and it was a lot of fun just having them, be part of the training. The scheduling, though, became a nightmare. And then we tried it with some of our state ambassadors, thinking, they're driving, they might be able to do this easier. Minnesota winters complicate things. We did the partnership with an adult and a youth, teaming it that way. It's still on our agenda to go back to that, but we just put a pause on it because we just didn't have the sort of the people power to manage the scheduling. But it definitely, I love what I'm hearing here, and worth the investment as well.
Thanks everyone for sharing some of these, and we have still more questions, but I just want to note that the time is running low here, and New put up in the chat her information if you have further questions or want to talk further, but we want to give the youth an opportunity for their final thoughts before we end the evening off. So Lori, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. It's been such a great honor to be involved in this, and I think just last words of inspiration is for sure continue involving youth in these conversations and this huge opportunity, because it is really useful. Every day we don't realize that we're evaluating. So like New was saying in the beginning, that we evaluate classrooms, we evaluate society, stores, people, everywhere we go we evaluate, and we ask a lot of questions to ourselves as well. And it gives a great insight and realization that it's like, oh, YPE taught me that. I learned this from this webinar. So it's continue involving youth is just really my advice and my words to everyone. And I will pass it to Vishal and Annie.
I can share first. So for me, I feel like just involving youth is really important, like as we learned in this webinar. But my journey with evaluation, I kind of just wanted to just try out something new, but it opened up a lot of opportunities for me, especially because I'm a pretty reserved person, so I don't really like to put myself out there unless I know that I am capable of it. But with my journey with evaluation, like I learned over the years that I can do it, and that just involving youth, it's more of an investment. Like you can't only involve them once and expect them to get a lot out of that. For me, it was a 3-year investment, and I learned a lot, and am the person I am through those 3 years. So yeah, and I'll pass it to Vishal.
Thank you. Something I would say would probably be involving multiple youth, because I know that joining YPE, it was a big deciding factor was if there were going to be other youth other than me, because I know that when I first joined, I thought I was going to be the only youth there, and it was a little scary because I knew that if I was going to go, I thought that it would be just a bunch of adults and then me. But another participant reached out to me and said, hey, I'm joining, and a few other participants are also joining, so I think it'd be cool if you were to join too. So I think that having other youth join would make other youth want to join or more comfortable to join, because then they wouldn't feel like they're just sucked into that sea of adults.
And with that, we want to thank you all for coming. It would be great to take a few minutes to do our very, very, very short survey. We wouldn't be good at continuous program improvement if we did not ask you all for what can we do to improve our facilitation. So if you have not done it yet, please take a moment to do that. This just helps us, gauge if we met our own objectives for tonight. And with that, I did share my email. I welcome you all to connect with me or the team, to even play around with some ideas. So with that, I don't know if anybody else would like to say a few words, but I know that we are at time or a little after time and I want to keep you. So with that, thank you all so much for coming.